In terms of how the evening goes, I will hand you over swiftly to our partners from Reach Community Projects, and we're very pleased to be working with them throughout the year on all sorts of projects which help the people of Haverhill and the surrounding area, but particularly on tonight's Hustings. So thank you, Henry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, do thank you for coming along, and I'm glad there's no football match on tonight that we've got to compete with. But just to say really that Reach Community Projects, for those that don't know about Reach Community Projects, we are an organisation that looks to tackle financial hardship. But ultimately, we want to prevent people from falling into trouble, and also we have, we want to work with any partners at all who would actually mean that we can improve the well-being of Haverhill. Ultimately, we have a vision. We would love to see a thriving, flourishing, resilient community. And so, it's no problem for us to invite the candidates along tonight, and I thank you all for coming, because if Haverhill prospers, so do the people, and that's really important to us as well. So I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Saffron, who's done all the organising. I've done hardly anything at all. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say why we wanted to do this. So a big part of my role at Reach is really identifying the causes of why people need to come to us. So why people are experiencing financial hardship and ways we can work locally to overcome those issues. We work with the town council, district council, GPs, schools, and we wanted to have this opportunity tonight to facilitate a discussion with your prospective parliamentary candidates, and as Henry said, how they are going to make Haverhill thrive. So thank you for coming, and thank you also for being here. I'm going to pass over to our event chair, Roy.
Thank you. I've got the fun job tonight. I'm keeping order. We would like the proceedings to run as smoothly and as quickly as possible. We've got lots of people to talk, so we're trying to keep them to 2 minutes an answer. That means that you need to pay attention, but also give them the respect when they're talking, please. I know some people find it hard to hear views that aren't the ones they hold. Please keep it in and be respectful of every candidate, whatever your views on them are. Candidates, please be respectful of each other. Try and be honest with our audience. Try and be friendly with our audience. My view tonight, you're here to see what these people have to say. I've told them earlier, I want you to meet who these people are as people, not just people with a rosette. So I would like to know a bit about what these people think on things. So my job is to try and make tonight run smoothly, run well, and to keep you honest and moving. Please be respectful. That's my main plea for tonight. Then we can get through as many questions as possible and hear what these candidates have to say. We're going to start by a 3-minute opening statement from each candidate. Unfortunately, one of the candidates has been unable to join us. He has given us a statement to read, which I will read at a point in the order. We've randomised the order for everything because that's just easy to do and I don't have to worry about who's coming next. So I think first opening candidate was Katie.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? I'm a bit nervous, I have to say, before I start. I don't like public speaking, and I've not done this before. So people keep asking me why I'm standing for West Suffolk in the general election, and I tell them all the same thing, that there's no one speaking for us and no alternative on offer, as I see it. I am the working class alternative. I'm an ordinary single parent who just wants a better future for my children and all of our children. This isn't about me, it's about you. Because our children are the future, they're the next doctors and teachers and police, and we need to invest in them. Education is so important. I also believe that communities are at the heart of everything. We invest in them and our future will be brighter. I'm someone who will be on your side and be the voice of the people of West Suffolk who have been ignored for 14 years, and it's time this changed. I've lived in West Suffolk for 20 years. I live 3.5 miles from the edge of the constituency of West Suffolk, and I've worked in many different services over the years, including Open Road and Turning Point, which are drug services, Women's Aid and Suffolk Survivor Network. So I've seen firsthand the outcome of broken, underfunded, understaffed public services, and I've seen the consequences of austerity and what that's done to people like me. We spend so much time struggling to feed our kids and balancing bills that we have no fight left, and we shouldn't have to fight. These are basic necessities for living. We can't build on top of a broken structure. We have to repair that structure first. I saw these statistics. I had to practice that so much when I was practicing. Statistics, can't say it. The average weekly UK real wage is up by just £16 in 14 years of Tory rule. The cost of food, heating, water, rent has skyrocketed, so it's no wonder we're all spinning plates trying to juggle all of it. All I hear are broken promises and MPs hurling insults at each other because they have nothing else to offer. And all I see are broken services, NHS waiting lists, a lack of youth services, people pulling out their own teeth and empty town centres. This cannot go on. I was a town councillor for 4 years in Bury St Edmunds, where I was probably the most visible and accessible councillor they've ever had. I became part of the community, organising lots of community projects, starting baby banks, funding activities for local schools and meeting with the residents weekly. And I absolutely loved it. And I've continued to do this regardless of the title or the role. If you vote for me, I will fight for you.
Hello, I'm Luke O'Brien. I'm standing as an independent candidate. My main motivation for standing that election is a mental health crisis. For years, I've read stories of the tragic suicides of young people, and I decided that I was uniquely positioned to tackle this issue. I happen to be disabled. I have a physical condition called cerebellum ataxia, which is similar to cerebral palsy. When I was at primary school, I wore a helmet and I used to fall over often. I was never expected to achieve much in life, and in high school I continued to struggle. But I grew stronger. I went to Suffolk College and I studied software engineering. After college, I traveled, I sponsored orphans, and now I live a good life as a software developer. So I wanted to prove to young people that even if they are disabled, even if they fail their exams, there is always hope. The mental health crisis doesn't just affect young people, it affects everyone. Teachers, especially learning support teachers, suffer abuse, and this is why a lot of teachers are leaving the profession. Now, this is personal to me. When I was at school, I had a learning support teacher who sat with me and accompanied me throughout all my school years. So if I'm elected MP, I will tackle the abuse suffered by teachers. The war in Ukraine is also another issue that is personal to me. I've been to Ukraine, and I see all these video footage on the internet, footage of drone strikes, of surveillance drones, of missiles and bombs. I've seen enough, and I believe this war needs to end. So if I'm elected MP, the war in Ukraine is another issue that I will work towards. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Dennis, and firstly thanks very much to Reach and Max and the church for setting this up for us this evening. It's great to have an opportunity to talk about my motivation and also the issues. Right, well, Labour starts with parents. Both my parents taught and neither was a tool maker. Dad set up a sixth form and helped youngsters get into university. Mum helped youngsters with special needs, helped them to succeed. I was brought up in an atmosphere of caring for others and helping others. A big influence for me was my sister, Jane, who is disabled. Much of our childhood was spent in hospitals where she had life-saving, pioneering surgery. That's given me an understanding and an appreciation for the NHS and also of carers. As to me, when I left college, I joined the civil service whilst I decided what it was that I wanted to do. And over 2 decades later, I left. I worked on things in the Department for Constitutional Affairs, on freedom of information, and after a family relocation to Cambridge, I then started working on education policy in the region, including Suffolk. In fact, a lot of work in Suffolk. I visited Sure Start centres, hubs for people, for young people, and my focus, my aim, what I was doing was sort of working at a regional level, improving the communication between central and local government to sort of smooth understanding. Then 2010 came and the regional structure was taken away with a coalition. After redundancy, I started retraining as a clinical psychologist, but then became increasingly involved in politics. I've been a councillor for 5 years and I've developed an understanding that political representation is about service. It's not about ego, it's not about personal ambition. And so to West Suffolk. I chose to apply and I'm delighted to have been successful in being selected. My plan was to move here after my son finished his GCSEs, but then the snap election happened, so that did for that plan. I have a few things I want to get done, but mostly I want to work with the communities and business, everyone else, and realise our ambitions. Thank you.
As I said, one of our candidates can't be here this evening, Ivan Kinsman. He has sent us an opening statement that he's asked if we can read on his behalf. This is from Ivan Kinsman, the SDP prospective parliamentary candidate for West Suffolk. I apologise for not being able to attend this hustings owing to poor public transport links. I was canvassing in Haverhill last Saturday on the High Street, so some of you may have seen me. I live in Newmarket and run my own translation agency, so count myself as a small business owner. I am not a professional politician, but I'm running in this election as the SDP PPC for West Suffolk out of concerns over the direction in which our country is headed. The country is in a mess. The Tory Labour duopoly can't balance the budget, can't control our national border, can't run decent public services despite record taxation, can't build sufficient homes, and can't organise decent social care. Naturally, voters are looking for an alternative, and I believe it is the SDP. As the SDP PPC for West Suffolk, I am focusing on the following: improving local transport links in the constituency, particularly local bus services with increased scheduling times. I am advocating, in the face of council budget cuts, that more funding be allocated to West Suffolk Council for bus travel to bring about fare reductions, increased frequency, increased security, new bus lanes, integration with other modes of transport, and the protection of essential rural routes. Tackling rising crime rates in some parts of West Suffolk. For example, 2 octogenarians recently had their purses pickpocketed while shopping in Peacocks. Our elderly citizens must be able to feel safe in their communities and whilst going about their daily business. As such, I want increased resources in frontline policing. For example, the reopening of a manned police point in Newmarket. Police will have one metric only: the reduction and detection of crime in their neighbourhood. Addressing the shortage of public sector housing in West Suffolk, which is preventing our young people from getting on the housing ladder. Any new housing will be built on urban reclamation and brownfield development, leaving our rural communities alone. When it comes to renting, we will introduce legislation to increase security of tenure. Married British families and veterans will be given preference in social housing allocation. There is a lack of dentists and doctors' appointments in West Suffolk. Several residents I spoke to link this to high mass migration numbers, putting pressure on our frontline services. The SDP's view is that the NHS is overmanaged but underperforms. As such, it will rebalance the budget to increase GP and dentist primary care as they play a key role in prevention and stopping patients going to hospital. We will allocate resource requirements to reduce waiting times for elective surgery to 6 weeks and waiting times at A&E to under 3 hours. In parallel, regarding migration, we will place a generational pause on mass migration and reduce it to 50,000 a year, as it was before Tony Blair's government. Constituents are telling me that the political parties make a lot of promises, but time after time fail to deliver them. As your MP for West Suffolk, I will hard to ensure these policies are implemented.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, people from Haverhill and West Suffolk. So nice to see so many people, and particularly in St Mary's in the church. That's a lovely thing to be doing in a church, to have this kind of democratic debate. I love democracy. I love social democracy, and we need more of social democracy. We need to really be including more of our people. And we do, and I'm a Christian, and we do need more of a Christian voice in our politics. I've been loving this election, as I say. I've been running through West Suffolk. I've taken 25 pictures of churches. I've gone to the pubs as well, and I've been listening to what people have to say about the state of the politics in their part of the country. I do a lot of work around interfaith. I'm a part-time director of the European Network on Religion and Belief. I also run my own business as a social enterprise, helping other charities. I've helped Open Road over many years. And I was really impressed with Reach when I came and saw your food bank work and the work that you're doing here in Haverhill. And that is just really tremendous what civil society can do. I'm really conscious about what we're doing to God's creation, what we are doing on our watch to lead to that runaway climate chaos that's just coming down the track. I thought this election really should be focusing on that issue. It doesn't appear to have happened, and I feel very sad about that, because we really are at the last chance saloon on the climate and being able to actually turn a corner. My heritage is Portuguese Jew. My ancestors fled Portugal because of their faith, and then they fled Amsterdam as economic migrants. They were very, very poor, into East London, and that's kind of my history. I live just up the road, and I've lived there for over 30 years. I've been married for 37 years. I've got 2 children, and I really love this part of the country. The key thing I've heard from people, all those people I've been listening to, is they want politicians to work together. They want collaboration. They really do want that going across our communities. And there's a lot of misery. There's a lot of misery, even in what people perceive as an affluent area here in West Suffolk. A lot of misery, pain and suffering. And I see that as I've been delivering my leaflets and talking to people. And there's a real despair out there. And I think we need to be having an MP elected that will actually champion the underdog, will actually speak up for people that are in poverty. And we do need to care for our people. We do really need to do something for the people that are living here in West Suffolk and do more. We also need to be very internationalist in our outlook. We're a great country. We can really lead on climate change. We can really lead on so many things, and we've gone right back on that over the period of time. And we need to give people a future that they can believe in, and that's what I'm focusing in on my campaign over the last few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, a very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. David Bull. I'm Deputy Leader of Reform UK. I'm also the candidate for Reform UK here, and thank you very much indeed for having me tonight. I'm a local boy. I grew up here, went to school here. I live in the county. My family are here as well, and I also support Ipswich Town for my sins. Look, the reason I'm involved is because nothing works in this country. Whether it's schools, hospitals, infrastructure, the roads, have you seen the state of the A12, for example? So nothing works in this country, and we desperately need to change that. The Tories have broken Britain over the last 14 years, and Labour will bankrupt Britain. Keir Starmer cannot tell us how much taxes are going to go up, but we believe it is in the order of 10, 15 billion pounds that they need to spend. Look, this for us is the immigration election. In terms of the numbers coming here, 2.5 million people have come to this country in the last 2 years. Since Rishi Sunak took power as Prime Minister, 50,000 illegal immigrants have come to this country. And as a result, the infrastructure simply cannot cope with the influx of people. It's costing us £8 million every single day. In terms of legal migration, though, 685,000 people came to this country last year. That is the same as a city of the size of Manchester coming in every single year. Again, the infrastructure cannot cope. And at the same time, our young people are really struggling in this country. All of us are struggling with the cost of living. We need to improve services for people who are really struggling. We've got 9 million people who are economically inactive in this country, 5 million people on out-of-work benefits, and the young people have given up. 725,000 18 to 25-year-olds are not in education, employment or training. I want to see British workers given British jobs, and we need to stop relying on cheap imported labour. I'm a doctor. The health service is in crisis, complete crisis. We spend £176 billion a year, and yet our outcomes are appalling. 380,000 cancer patients didn't even start their cancer treatment on time. If you don't do that, you do not do well, and you are more likely to die. When I tell you our cancer survival times are worse than the rest of Europe, we are 20 years behind the rest of Europe. So many policies and so little time. Look, Labour is going to win this election. The Conservative Party are falling apart. We're now polling with a second party when it comes to every single poll, 19, 20, 21%. This is the election where you can actually vote with your heart. So join the revolt and vote for Reform UK.
Thank you. Well, I but honesty and hard work, and I should point out that Reform are in fact not second in almost all the polls. Politics is broken, trust is low, and I know that people are sick of political promises that aren't kept. Since I was selected as the Conservative candidate here last July, I've been trying to do things very differently. So I've been campaigning the old-fashioned way. Every single week since last July, we've been knocking on doors. I've had thousands of conversations with people on the doorstep. I managed to raise enough money to send a survey with free postage for the replies to every household in the constituency, because we've been determined to work hard and listen hard. And in the offer that I am making in this election, what I've suggested is not a manifesto with lots of promises that won't be kept, or not even just slogans without any meaningful policies. I've offered what I call my contract with the people of West Suffolk. So I'm saying, here are 5 things that I will do locally. Here are 5 things that I will speak on and vote on nationally if I'm elected. And in offering you this contract, I am deliberately creating a rod for my own back, because I, like you, am sick of the lack of direct accountability in politics. So please keep this contract, and if I'm elected, use it to hold me to account. And if I don't do these 10 things, then vote me out at the next election, and here is my signature. I consider it a contract. Hold me to account. This is a rod for my own back. And on the 5 local things that I say, the first one is a charter for West Suffolk so that we can start getting development right. Everyone who knows Haverhill knows the issues that we've had with the Relief Road, for example. We need to start getting much tougher with the developers. We do need new houses, but they need to be in the right places. They need to be family-sized homes. They need to be attractive. They need to be in keeping with the area. But we also need to get the developers to fund the infrastructure and amenities that make communities and not just long lists of units. The second thing is I've got a plan for high streets. That's about rates and 30 seconds already. Okay, I'm going to get on with it. High streets, so rail, and I'm campaigning for a rail link between Haverhill and Cambridge. I'm campaigning for a relief road in Mildenhall, and I will work with others to improve local services and amenities. And I've shown that I will take on the powerful for ordinary people. I've opposed Seneca, I've opposed the Acorn biodigester, and I am taking on the irresponsible and feckless developers. Lots of other candidates tend to say, vote for me because I'm this party or that party. I'm saying vote for me because I've been listening and I have the plan for our area.
Good evening, everyone. Henry Batchelor from the Liberal Democrats. And firstly, thanks to all of you for coming out this evening. I think having a full house probably just shows how important this election is going to be. What we see this is an actual opportunity to have some change in West Suffolk. For the last X number of years, we've had the same party in control, and now we actually have a very realistic opportunity to have something new. So, please do listen to all of the views that the candidates give you this evening and actually make a decision next Thursday on July the 4th about who you want to vote for and who you want to represent you at a government level. Because this year, more than any other, you have the opportunity to have something different here in West Suffolk. A very quick bit about me. So I've lived in Haverhill for the last 8 years. Prior to that, I grew up 6 miles down the road in Linton, where I was born and raised, went to all the local education there, and then moved here with my wife about 8 years ago. In terms of jobs, I am an elected district and county councillor. And I've been that for the last 10 years, so do have some experience of local politics in the area. Professionally, I do something completely different. So I work in the commercial department of an international flooring manufacturer. So sometimes it is nice to have a bit of difference between your political life and your professional life. So in terms of what we want to do in West Suffolk, so for those that have received our leaflets, you'd have seen our top 3 priorities. Firstly, we want to have a change in the NHS. In West Suffolk specifically, there is appointments that are either invisible or are just, people are waiting months and months and months and getting sent to other counties. So that's one thing we would like to change. Secondly, the environment. So one thing we're proposing on doing nationally, but obviously will have a big impact in West Suffolk, is we're proposing on making sewage companies public companies, so they're actually owned and managed by the taxpayer, and that's who the shareholders are responsible to. And thirdly, we are looking to boost economy in the area. Obviously, West Suffolk, you walk out here, go down the high street, you see lots of empty shops, you see lots of larger national companies, rather than the small to medium-sized businesses that we would like to see. So those are our top 3 priorities. Obviously, as the evening goes on, you'll hear about some of our more Haverhill-specific issues. But yeah, I think for the time being, I think that will all from me. And as I'm sure Roy will attest to, I'm very punctual. So.
Thank you all. As you'll know, when you ordered tickets, you were asked if you wanted to submit questions. I had the onerous job of reading all those questions and deciding which ones to be asked. If your question isn't asked tonight, I apologise. It's not because it was a bad question, it's because I picked something different. I didn't know who submitted any of these questions. I have now been given a first name of the person that did submit it, so I will acknowledge that. And I'm just going to throw them at the candidates. They've got 2 minutes to answer each question. And the first question tonight. Please tell us what you think are the needs of Haverhill residents and what are your plans to address them. That was submitted by Judith, and I'm going to go to Henry first.
Me again, thank you. Well, thank you, Judith, wherever you are in this room, if you're indeed here. So I think, as I mentioned in my introduction, so what I see the local needs for the area are, I will run through in slightly more detail. Appreciate I've got slightly less time, but I'll do my best. So one, the High Street. Obviously, the High Street is, the epicentre of Haverhill. That's where people come, they socialise, they want to shop, they want to engage people's services. So what our plan is to try and address the issues that we're having in the High Street, i.e. lack of shops closing, extremely high rents. We're actually proposing on completely scrapping business rates for the retailers that operate in these stores. And we're proposing on replacing that with a levy for the landlords. So, that usually London-based companies that own the shells of these buildings that are charging higher and higher and higher rents every year, making them completely unaffordable for local business. So we're hoping that will slightly redress the balance and actually make the landlords charge more reasonable rents so that they actually have a tenant within their property. And then they can actually get back some of this levy that they will be paying to the government. Secondly, I touched on it briefly, GPs and NHS dentist waiting times. So what the plan is that we've committed to in our manifesto and that I would champion should I be your MP in West Suffolk, we would actually fund 8,000 more GPs nationally. So that would mean an increase or a decrease in waiting times for anyone here to see a general practitioner. And dentist waiting times, we're actually proposing on recalculating how the demand for NHS dentists is actually worked out. So currently it's calculated nationally. We're proposing on changing that to a local demand-led calculation so that the right number of people that need to see an NHS dentist will be able to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, the needs for Haverhill are the same for every town in West Suffolk. When I go to Newmarket, when I go to Brandon, Mildenhall and Haverhill, congestion, transport, business rates, GP surgeries, and of course NHS dentists. There are so many issues to deal with. If I were an MP, I would certainly meet with interested organisations to tackle these issues. With regard to transport, I have promised that I will conduct a district-wide survey of public transport with the aim to improve transport. Hopefully that would also bring down congestion, which will alleviate the problems of air pollution as well. With regard to NHS dentists, I have met with Toothless in England, the grassroots campaign group, and I have signed their pledge. So if I am elected, I will meet with them and work on ways to provide more access to NHS dentists. With business rates, there are many suggestions. The Suffolk Chamber of Commerce has a few ideas, and if I become an MP, I will meet with them and do what is necessary to see Haverhill's High Street thrive, and this will also benefit every single town in West Suffolk. Thank you very much.
Stand up this time. I should have stood up before. I can't see. So the people that the residents that I've been speaking to, it's similar to what the others have said really. People are saying that NHS dentists, lack of NHS dentists are one of the biggest issues. Lack of social housing, public services, lack of public transport, and lots of empty shops in the town centre. To rectify this, I plan to listen to you and stay visible and take input to you for what's important. I was actually part of Toothless in Suffolk. I was actually part of bringing Toothless in Suffolk to Bury St Edmunds. So I've attended when they've had protests in town in Bury. I've attended their protests, and as a councillor, I funded them. I funded what they called? Dentaid. It was in there somewhere. I funded Dentaid to come to Bury, and they did some different surgeries where they were there all day treating emergency people in pain. And every time there was literally people waiting round the block to see someone from like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I was also I started a crowdfunder for a girl called Danielle that she's quite famous. Oh God, he's going to shut me up. She was the girl that pulled out all her own teeth, and I crowdfunded her to get a new set of dentures because she was in her 40s and didn't have a dentist, and she shouldn't be walking around with no teeth. That's not right. And she did, and it was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat some of the good points that have been made by my other colleagues in there. I think what Haverhill needs, and the people of Haverhill, is they need an MP that's going to be interested in them and not interested in money and being a celebrity. And they have been very, very poorly served, have they not, in the last 14 years by a particular MP who's now moved on. In West Suffolk have had the seat since the 1900s. 124 years, same thing. So it is time for something. A fresh start. I think the Conservative, you're using that in your leaflets, but we really need a fresh start here in Haverhill. Absolutely need that. I think the town centre issue is obviously critical, and colleagues just touched on that. I was a councillor for 21 years, and I brought the BID, it's called a Business Improvement District, to Bury St Edmunds. It's now called Our Bury St Edmunds, and it's been a great success. It's bringing everybody together. The churches, the businesses, of course, culture. You've got brilliant art centre here. This town could really be not the underdog, because it's often presented as the underdog, as people will know in West Suffolk, up against Bury St Edmunds. It could become the top dog, and that's what Haverhill really needs. I think people also need, we've got a lot of income problems, and Katie's just touched on that and the implications of that. We need a proper living wage. And we're saying in the Greens it should be £15 an hour. We're also saying we need to get everything working again in our public services and our NHS. We've all been touching on that. And we need to have a wealth tax on all the millionaires and billionaires. There are today 177 billionaires in the UK, up from 29 14 years ago. We can take 2% more of their income. But we need to get the income from somewhere to improve public services, because the two main parties are suggesting you can get improvements with no new money. It's not going to work. So the Greens are very focused on that, and that will benefit the residents of Haverhill.
Look, I think people get Haverhill really wrong. Outsiders don't know what the town is. They don't know how much it's changed. And, it's now closing in on Bury St Edmunds population-wise. It's got nearly 30,000 people. Bury's only a little bit bigger. And people here look at Bury and say, why is Bury different? Why does Bury have what it has? It has a thriving town centre. It has the college. It has the hospital. And those things are actually all linked, and I would agree with Henry about what you said about rents, and I'd agree with what you said about the bid in Bury. But actually, in the end, what we've got to do is try to create prosperity, and not just keep talking about sort of how we redistribute this and take from this and give to that and so on. We've got to try to create prosperity, and there is a big opportunity for us here, which is the change that's coming over the next couple of decades with the huge development in Cambridge. Now, that creates some pressures for us because there's going to be demand for new housing, but if we engage in that process, we are going to be able to get infrastructure, and we're going to be able to get investment and employment opportunities in Haverhill. And we're going to talk about some of the social difficulties in the town, I think, as the evening goes on. But in the end, these things are symptoms of a lack of prosperity. And instead of just constantly talking about taxing billionaires so they leave the country, we can tax billionaires, we can tax rich people, but you know, it's not. But sure, and I'm totally up for doing that. But that's not going to just magically fix everything. We've got to work on a proper plan to bring prosperity and jobs here. And when that happens, prosperity for everyone will follow. We'll be able to eliminate some of the undoubted social problems that we face.
Well, for me, it's health. You know how difficult it is to see a GP. You can't actually get your appointments. We've got a major problem. We've got 8,800 GPs leaving the service. We've got 25% of newly qualified doctors leaving the service because working in the NHS is, quite frankly, pretty appalling. So I believe that we need to make sure that we have all frontline health and social care staff should pay 0 basic rate tax. That gives you a 13% pay uplift immediately with actually no extra money going in to the health service. For young people trying to become doctors, it's incredibly expensive. And that's why I've proposed, and I've written in our plan, that we will underwrite the cost. So if you spend 10 years in the NHS, we will pay back in its entirety your tuition fees. And for me, that's great because you're getting people from real backgrounds coming into the health service and then staying in the health service to service the community. So that's health. I think also we want to see increased access. The current model doesn't work, and it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. If you've got a problem and you throw money at it, you get an expensive problem. There are much better ways of doing things with diagnosis and treatment centres where you get your dentistry, your healthcare, your imaging all done. Why do you have a blood test and then wait 2 weeks to get the result? Not acceptable. We can speed it up. It can be much faster and much more productive. Crime is a major problem. I think everyone here would agree with that. We've pretty much decriminalised crime. If you nick 200 quid's worth of stuff from Tesco, you will not be prosecuted. Unacceptable, and we need 0 tolerance. I also want to see an emphasis on mental health, particularly from those in the forces. This is a big area for people who work in the military, and you are left from the military with no help and no support. And what we need to do is to say, you serve and you deserve. We need to get them first on the housing ladder. We need to give them psychiatric support, and we need to keep them away from drug and alcohol misuse. It's a very complex problem, but it can be solved.
I'm going to return to some of the themes, I'm afraid. Going last is a bad thing. Talking with people in the constituency in Haverhill, yeah, NHS service is what people are talking about, or the waiting lists. I met a couple in Haverhill Market, and a chap put his hand on my shoulder to get my attention and said, I've been supposed to having an operation. They've cancelled it 3 times. 3 times on the morning. So he's now waiting for the 4th one. Dentists. Now, Labour councillors in Haverhill have done similar to brilliant work to what Katie did in Bury, and got a dentist, a mobile dentist, so to speak, in to provide a service for people who needed NHS dentistry. My son doesn't have a NHS dentist anymore. And finally, yeah, revived high streets. We've got to do something about Haverhill High Street. The effect of the boarded up shops is dreadful. Labour has a plan for that, a 5-point plan. We'll reform business rates, so it'll be levelled up so that the big guys don't get all of the plots, and the little guys don't. We'll set up bunking hubs, And we'll deal with antisocial behaviour by getting in more police officers to tackle it. We'll introduce right to buy so that communities can buy up the shops. And finally, we'll deal with late payments so that people don't go under because they've run out of money. Thanks.
Thank you all. Our second question was submitted by Jane. Do you think that the UK will get to a stage where we don't need food banks? When will that be? And how will we get there? I'll let you start, Rebecca.
Thank you. Yes, food banks. A friend of mine volunteers in a food bank, and he's in tears. He's in a dreadful state on a regular basis. The number of people using food banks is going up, and yet, whilst the demand is going up, the contributions, people giving food, is going down. All is not right in the economy, despite what Sunak says. The users are in plain sight. They're in this room. They're people that we know. So what do we do about it? Well, the question is, will it end? Well, yes, the rise will end. We'll reduce numbers. When it'll happen, we don't know. But what we do need is economic prosperity to raise wages so that people have the money to put food on the table that they bought for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, obviously, it would be great if no one could use food banks. It would be great if charities like Reach didn't have to do the work that they did, but we thank them for doing it in these times. Obviously, I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution to that particular problem, but what we would like to propose to do, which we're hoping would go some way to trying to help this issue. Firstly, we would introduce a new grant that's aimed at adults called a Lifelong Skills Grant. This would help adults retrain to gain new skills later in life so that then their opportunities for work would increase. We see this as a positive move. Currently, there isn't very much in the way of funding for adult education. It normally has to be self-funded, or there's very few grants available out for people to tap into. So that's the first thing we do. Second thing, we're proposing on removing the two-child cap benefit. So what that means is if a parent is unfortunate enough to lose their job, it means currently, in the current system, they can only claim benefit on 2 of their children should they have more. So what our proposal is to remove that cap, so hopefully in the future, they wouldn't have to then go and use a food bank because they didn't have enough benefits to feed their entire family. So those are just 2 things that we would propose to introduce locally in West Suffolk that we think will go part of the way to solving the issue, but obviously we don't have a silver bullet to try and address this issue completely. But, we feel these are 2 immediate things we can do that should have a positive impact. Thank you.
It is very difficult for people on benefits to get off them because they get trapped. And so one of the things that we're desperately keen to do is to raise the tax threshold. So you wouldn't pay tax until you make at least £20,000 a year. And we believe that will make a big difference in terms of getting people off benefits and back into work. We also need food security in this country. Look at the fields. They're covered in solar panels. We're paying people not to grow stuff. We need to actually incentivize farmers. We need to pay farmers more to produce food in this country. Agriculture is the lifeblood of a county like Suffolk. Also, and I will say this, and it's a difficult truth, but net zero is a complete folly. We have no idea how much it's going to cost to get to net zero in an arbitrary time, sorry to tell you. We believe it's £3 trillion, and every single one of you is paying the bill for that. So, just in terms of energy bills, they are going up because we have the net zero subsidies on all of that. that. So we say we want energy in this country, we want new oil licenses, new gas licenses, I want to see new SMRs, the small modular reactors, being built by Rolls-Royce. We need an energy mix, excuse me, and we need energy security in this country, and that way we can beat this huge problem.
Yeah, I think that the answers so far actually have returned to the wider issue of the state of the economy, and that is correct. I think one of the problems with the debate that we've had in this election campaign nationally is that quite often the Labour Party will say, this will be better, the economy will be bigger, but they never say how, and the scrutiny has not yet been there. I'll tell you what I think we should do to make the economy bigger and stronger. I think the economic model we've had my whole lifetime has run out of road. We run massive annual trade deficits every single year. We consume and we import more than we produce and we export every single year. We are standing on a ledge that is getting smaller and smaller every year, and at some point we're just going to fall. So we need to completely transform our economic model. We need to reindustrialize. We need to get investment into the real economy. That means we're going to need to have better incentives to save more, but we need to reform complex things like the rules regarding pension savings. We put hardly any of our pension savings into UK equities in this country. That's absolutely crazy. It sometimes suits the government very well because lots of that money goes into government bonds and makes its own borrowing cheaper. But we need to fundamentally change our economic model. Being a services superpower is all very well, but it is not alone enough for a country of 70 million people, and it doesn't serve people who are not able to go and do jobs in the City of London. It's created a completely unequal economy, and we need comprehensive change.
Thank you. Can I just say, first of all, that I don't know what the statistics are, but I know that a lot of the people that use food banks are actually in work. And I remember hearing on the radio, it's probably over a year ago now, that they were changing the hours of food banks so that people in work could go to the food bank at the end of the day when they'd finished work. So it's not just people on benefits. I also think that food banks are a bit of a sticking plaster, and that it's firefighting rather than looking at the cause of what the problem actually is, which is that we need a livable wage. I need to put my glasses on. Can't actually see. Sustainable contracts, and we need to teach young people about budgeting whilst they're still at school. And we need to deal with the symptom rather than look at will we have food banks forever? Hopefully not.
Yes, it is unfortunate that we've got to this stage, but I'm optimistic about the future, and I think that there will be a stage where people no longer depend on food banks. It's going to take a long time. It's taken a long time to get into this situation. But there's also a wider problem of poverty. And unfortunately, I think the wider problem of poverty is a much more complex issue. There are many reasons why people find themselves in poverty and need of food banks. And it's quite right to talk about education. I've heard mentioned that we have a lost generation of young people. I've heard mentioned that we have 2 lost generations of young people. And one of the reasons why people depend on food banks is because they don't have the correct budgeting skills. It's not just young people themselves, but their parents who also do not know how to budget properly. So I support budgeting and basic economic teaching in mathematics curriculum. And I think with more education, then we can eventually tackle this problem. But it will take a long time, and we need to persevere and have hope in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can get rid of food banks by getting rid of the Tory government. That's what's given us food banks. I had to set up a food bank as a Green councillor in Bury St Edmunds. Bury St Edmunds, this lovely town that's nice and affluent, in 2014, working with church groups because people were very, very hungry. Okay, that is what's happened under the Conservatives. In fact, the Tory MP then, David Ruffley, I had to really persuade him to get behind that, and he did eventually. That was a good piece of news. But we've got too much food banks. I've been to see what you're doing here, doing some great work. I've been up to Mildenhall. I've seen the one that's been run by the Baptist Church there. There's a lot of good work being done by good folk to care for people, but it shouldn't be happening. And it's a shocker. And if you go round the Cangle estate, if you go round Chalkstone, and I'm sure lots of you have because there's some Labour councillors here that I've known from old, you can see the social inequality. You can see the social injustice that is there. And as I said earlier, we've got to look after our own people. They've got to be cared for. We've got to love them. We've got to love people more and make them feel that they're part of society and that we value their uniqueness. We do, as I said, need to uplift wages, and we've suggested a proper living wage because low pay, as Katie's touched on, is a major contributor to that. And we do need benefit reform. We're saying in the Green Party we need a universal basic income, a basic standard for life. Because if you're unemployed as a man, you get £75 a week. That's what you get. That's the benefit you get. Not everybody's living off benefits, having the high life, okay, which is the myth that some people perpetuate, okay? We need to give people some decent income and some respect, and that will get rid of the food banks. But as I said, getting rid of the Tories is going to be a good start.
The next question came in from Mark. I don't know which Mark. Similar to our very first question, but with Haverhill becoming a fast-growing town, what are your plans to make sure we have the correct and right amount of infrastructure to cope with the demands of Haverhill's residents? Luke.
Thank you. Well, I've mentioned transport. And there is a company called Cambridge Connect. They have a plan to reopen the Haverhill to Cambridge Railway, and I am supportive of this plan. I've been in contact with another grassroots campaign group called Rail Futures, and if I became an MP, I would certainly meet with these groups and work towards the plan to reopen the railway. I've also mentioned GP surgeries and access to dentists, and certainly those are concerns that we need as a growing town. Indeed, every town and growing village in Suffolk needs these. So again, I will meet with groups and see what strategies we can put in place to improve access to these vital services. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So very simply, we would change the way that developers' contributions to the local community are managed. Currently, the way it works is when a housing development is granted planning permission, the housing developer is asked to pay a certain amount of money based on the number of houses they want to build. What the issue we tend to have is this can vary and is very frequently negotiated down by the developer through the planning process. So when the planning permission, if it is granted, we then as a community don't benefit as much as we should have done if the proper criteria had been followed. So what our proposal is locally to try and address this, we would actually scrap that system and we'd introduce what's called a community infrastructure levy. What that means is for new developments, whether it's housing or commercial, means for every square metre of land that is built upon, there would be a set fee that is non-negotiable paid to the local authority, who would then make a decision in conjunction with the local community as to what should be built as a byproduct of this development. So, it doesn't have to be roads, it doesn't have to be railways, it can be things such as community centres, faith buildings, money towards healthcare, for example. So it is a surefire way of guaranteeing that the local community would benefit from a housing or commercial development without any negotiating down by the developer based on profit. Thank you.
Thank you. I think what Haverhill needs tonight is probably shorter answers, so I'll try to do that. I've already mentioned I'm campaigning for a rail link between Cambridge and Haverhill. I'm not just in a position to say I will, if I'm elected, start talks with government. I started those talks much earlier in the year, and that is on the desks of officials in the Department for Levelling Up who are responsible for the plan for Cambridge. I agree. I think Henry might have just endorsed my charter for West Suffolk, my policy on extracting more from the developers. And I think I would also add to that, Haverhill is undoubtedly in need of some kind of health hub with proper health facilities here in the town. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, look, it all comes down to health. If you've got 20 million people on a waiting list, 8 million people on a primary waiting list, and 12 million on a secondary waiting list, if you can't see a doctor, you can't get back into work. So we need to fund the health service properly, but we need to reform it. I agree with you as well in terms of planning, that if you're building lots of houses, you need to have infrastructure. Europe is much better at this than we are. So they ensure that the planning infrastructure is in there before any house is built. And actually, if you go to Europe, you'll see all of the infrastructure goes in before they build a single house. Transport in this part of the world is a diabolical public transport, and I also would support reopening of the railway. The beaching cuts were a disaster for this part of the world, and so having a transport hub like that would be wonderful. More bus services, and lots of older people are actually very isolated. As you can't drive, you can't get out and about, and that makes them socially isolated. Also, I want to see fuel duty come down, because the amount of tax we pay on petrol is far too high, and that should also help social mobility.
Well, I have experience of knowing how not to do it. As a councillor in Bury St Edmunds, I was a councillor for 2 estates, and one of them was an old estate and one of them was a new build estate. And the problems that having no infrastructure caused was that they were promised, when the builders the residents were promised a school, they were promised a bus service, they were promised a community centre, and they were promised a local shop. So far, they have none of them. They went back on the school idea, said that there were spaces in one of the other local schools. They haven't got a bus service. For some reason, the bus doesn't go through that new build estate. No one can get doctors and dentist appointments anyway. We already know that. They've got a very, very expensive gym that hasn't been built yet, 5 years down the line, which is £100 a month membership. But they won't have a community centre. So they've got no base, they've got no place to gather, to have community events. And there is talk of a co-op. Whether that will happen, who knows? But that's what happens when infrastructure hasn't been put in place, or the builders and contractors haven't done what they've said they will do. The other issue is how expensive they are. Is that 30? Yeah, it's 30. I know people worry about school places and getting GP appointments, and I would like to know more about the impacts of on local traffic. But yeah, infrastructure is incredibly important. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we've got, say, 30,000 people, 27,000 people in Haverhill, 50,000 in Bury St Edmunds. I mean, if we're going to be like Bury St Edmunds, you're going to be building up the A143, aren't you? You know, all the way to Bury St Edmunds. And I think we've got to hold on to the fact that we're in a rural county. We do want some countryside left. Yeah, we really do. And all the estates that are being built all over West Suffolk, if you go around, they're huge estates in Newmarket, Mildenhall, and the candidates will have seen that. You know, and it's going on everywhere without facilities, without infrastructure. I mean, it's just happening all the time, and it's happened under this government's watch. That's what's happened. We've only had a change of council in the last year or so, so we've had a Conservative council that's kind of overseen all of that growth over the years. So we say in the Green Party, small is beautiful. You've got to be thinking about just holding back on just too much development. We need some countryside, we need some space for nature, we need some space for tranquility. That is really important. I think the other thing we do need to think about, and I've been very kind of alive to this in the election, we've got 1/3 of households, single person households. A lot of people living on their own, very isolated, very lonely. And we've got a real increase on that. You know, we used to have houses that were sort of full of people, and now they're fairly empty. I think we need to consider how we're going to respond to that going forward. My last point about infrastructure and relating to that, and colleagues have been talking about railways and, of course, buses and having better bus services to other town centres so you can go shopping and things like that, although it would be a good idea to have all the shopping here so they didn't need to do that. And we need proper kind of cycling, safe cycling, we need walking, we need to get people out of their cars as much as we can, and we need to have employment locally so they're not all getting in their car going to Cambridge or going up to Bury St Edmunds. So I think we need to really give that a proper think through, and we need to be working with local businesses and local voluntary organisations and the town councils in doing so.
Yes, it stands to reason that if you've got more people, then you need to scale everything up, and you do need to make sure that you do that before people arrive, and you do need to hold developers to account when they make promises to do things. In fact, when planning permission is granted on condition that those things are done. But my focus is, like others, on transport infrastructure, and I'm very keen on the idea of the rail link between Haverhill and Cambridge being restored. When I worked in Cambridge, I had colleagues who lived here in Haverhill, and they had nightmare commutes, which would have been made an awful lot easier had they been able to just get onto a train. Helpful for business as well. And buses, I've been using them a lot to get around the constituency, and many of them are very, very good, but I've struggled with getting between Haverhill and Newmarket. It's all right so long as you want to travel on a Tuesday at 1:10. So maybe that needs to be improved. Thanks.
Thank you all. Quinn submitted the next question. In representing this constituency and the people in it, what will you do to represent them? Bearing in mind the general view is self first, party second, country third, and those that voted for you last.
I've always put the people that elect me first. I'm not really a party chap. I was in the Labour Party for 28 years, as people know. I thought that party was a bit too far right for me, and so I joined the Green Party because that kind of reflects what I think is really important at the moment about social justice and justice for the planet. That's really important. But it is people that count first. So I'm not really a party man. And I don't follow party lines. I don't like doing that. I like to sort of exercise my own judgment and work in my own way, but collaboratively. I do to do that collaboratively. But no, I'm not a party man. So it's the people first that elected me, or that didn't elect me. Even the people that didn't elect me. I'm in the Green Party because I think the main priority for us right now is how we're going to have a livable planet to all live on. Can I just say, because I've got a little bit, I just wanted to say something to the Reform candidate a bit when he was going down his particular route. I mean, I think that the really important thing is the planet, rather than money, money, money. That's where I'm coming from. When the last tree has been cut down, the last fish caught, the last river poisoned, only then will we realise that one cannot eat money. And that was a really important thing from Native America. And I think this is what we've got to get back to. We've got to get back to community. I think Henry was talking at the beginning about resilience. We've got to get back to our people. We've got to look after our people. And we've got to look after the planet. And I don't think, sadly, I don't think the Labour Party is going to be doing that anytime soon.
Let me just respond to that. The United Kingdom, we emit 1% of global emissions, so therefore I don't want everyone to be colder and poorer and hungrier because of this obsession with net zero, which no one actually has voted for ever. Cleaner air is fine, absolutely fine, and that's what we want to do, but it's not the right solution at the right time or the right price. We need to do, I drive an electric car. I'm lucky I can do that, but not everyone can do that. I have solar panels that heat my house. I can do that, but not everyone else can. And so that's why I think it needs to be done slowly and the transition needs to be slower. I wish I was. I wish I was. Look, well, so as a constituency MP, and let me just answer that question, whilst you're worrying about the rest of the world, I'll be worrying about the people who vote for me.
Can I just come back on that point?
Got to follow that. Well, I'm not in a party, so this is quite an easy one for me to answer. I guess I kind of like to think of myself as a bit of a people's candidate, in that I am actually really sick of listening to politicians make promises. I just switch off. I haven't watched any of the debates because I just find it boring because I don't believe any of them. So obviously I won't have a party to put first, which leaves me completely free to vote and speak on the behalf of the constituents. And I will probably be a lot more visible an MP than what you were used to, because we in Bury, we have the same issue. Our MP, we call her very fondly No-Show Joe, because you literally never see her. You only ever see her around an election. And that's not someone that that person doesn't represent us. So I would be a lot more visible. I would do weekly surgeries. There is a huge wave of independence running across the country because a lot of people feel the same as me, that maybe two big parties, is that a choice? I don't think it really is a choice. It's like the veil of a choice. But if we've only got the choice of two, I was 30. I feel like my mum. But yeah, so that's why I feel that independence, I'll be able to speak for you. Thank you.
Honestly, I think that little spat sums up what's wrong with our politics. Bombast, ego. I mean, what on earth does net zero have to do with the fact that David's a white man. It's ridiculous. Our politics is full of these synthetic ideological rows from foreign countries, American nonsense out of their universities. We just need to get on with serving the public, doing what's right for people. People first, country first, ideology and silly games last.
As I said, I've been a councillor for 5 years, and anyone who's been in a chamber as a councillor knows that you only get things done by working collaboratively, by working together with people of other parties. I'd like to demonstrate my commitment to delivery by using an example of 20 miles per hour, which I got implemented in Ely. I worked as the highways lead, and there was one meeting when a fellow councillor described how she'd worked really, really hard to get a speeding restriction implemented. And it didn't happen because the camera needed to go onto a lamppost and nobody knew who the lamppost belonged to, or it hadn't been adopted. And so that poor woman, resident, who had worked with my colleague, the councillor, she'd worked so hard, and it came to naught. And she was so worried about an accident waiting to happen outside her home. Then I thought it was heartbreaking, it was awful. I got to hear about 20 miles per hour, which very cheaply dealt with every accident waiting to happen in one go. As I said earlier, politics is about service. There are lots of young and ambitious candidates in this election, and I'm very happy to let them go for ministerial jobs and for me to be a backbencher, and to go to London on a Monday morning, back to the constituency on a Wednesday, and sit down with constituents to find out what their problems are. Thank you.
So I think West Suffolk has been quite poorly represented up until now. Obviously, I think it's no secret that the MP is very much about themselves up until this point. So, you know, it's very lucky that you're going to have a change this time round. So as someone that lives in West Suffolk, I live in Haverhill, obviously I would like to think that any decisions that are taken in government, anything I ask for in government, and votes that I make in government would represent the views of those people that live near me, that live in the same town, and we all think the same way. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question in part. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I understand the general view of politicians, and I understand that over so many years the trust in politics has been eroded. But I'm not like anybody else. I'm not doing this for myself. And the fact that I have chosen not to belong to any party shows that I am a principled person. And as software developers, we are very concerned with the definition of words. Democracy means rule of the people, and I very much understand that. If I was elected to national parliament, then I must say my primary concern would be with the country, with national politics. But my secondary concern would certainly be the people of Suffolk. My family live in Suffolk, and I want the best for them as I want the best for everyone. So I will certainly be the voice of the people of Suffolk, and I will bring your concerns to national level. Thank you very much.
In the light of growing concerns over mental health among our youth, especially after the challenges posed by recent global events, There's a proposal to station mental health professionals in every school. How do you plan to support this initiative within our community? Furthermore, what measures will you advocate to ensure that these professionals are not only accessible, but also effectively integrated into our educational institutions to provide ongoing support and early intervention for all our students? That was from Jenny.
It's a much bigger issue than that, actually, and I don't want to make a party political point, but what Matt Hancock did and the COVID lockdown was absolutely appalling for kids' mental health. It was predicated on false data. We should never have locked down. The second and third lockdowns were absolutely unnecessary, and it's true, I can tell you, it's true from a medical point of view. Let me finish. We didn't need to lock down. And so as a result of that, we've seen young people who are socially isolated. I know many young people who are socially isolated, who've lost confidence, who then are unable to function in society. I also blame the use of mobile phones. And the fact is that they're sharing images on social media, like Instagram, for example. You can laugh, but I have nephews and nieces who have real problems in terms of the images that are being shared and the fact that young people believe that that is the image that they need to look up to. That is a major problem in terms of the mental health of children. Of course, we need to support kids in schools, and we need to ensure that there are mental health services. But it's also really important that children feel that they are in a safe space and they can talk about their issues. And actually, growing up is really difficult, and if you can share your problems and the anxieties that you face as a young person, it helps you solve some of those problems.
Well, to answer the question, I think it's right that that schools obviously do have some expertise on mental health, and that kids have access to the right kind of advice and guidance. But again, we're talking about tackling symptoms and not causes. Now, I supported lockdown. I think lockdown was the responsible thing to do. But it is undeniable. That locking down and closing schools had an effect on children. Now, I've visited lots of schools across the constituency. Education's a massive thing for me. It changed the trajectory of my life. We have 3 young kids. It is undeniable when you go to schools and you talk to teachers and you talk to parents that lockdown did have an effect on children. It's also undeniable that screen time and social media is driving a very serious problem with children's mental health. There should be total bans on bringing mobile phones and smartphones into schools, and there should be strict age limits for the use of social media for children. So yes, we have to look after children when they have problems, but we have to look at what is driving these problems. And each of those 3 things, I would suggest, are a big part of the problem.
Thank you very much. So I think the question was around how much would we support mental health provision for younger people. So in answer to the question directly, yes, the Liberal Democrats would very much support the support of mental health provision. In our manifesto, we're proposing a mental health support officer in every primary and secondary school, not just in West Suffolk, but nationwide. And we're also proposing a mental health walk-in clinic in every single community. So that would include Haverhill here. The big question is, how would we pay for it? How would we pay for it? We will propose to increase the digital services tax on the social media giants that don't pay nearly enough tax, in our opinion. So we would double that from 3% to 6%. So in answer to the question, yes, we absolutely would support it. We've got a plan in place and we know how to pay for it.
Mental health is something that's pretty close to my heart. Having worked in addiction and mental health and for years, I know quite a bit about it. When I worked at Women's Aid, I didn't just work with the women who had domestic abuse issues. They also had, on top of that, complex needs of addiction and mental health problems as well. Because obviously I clearly like a challenge, which is why I'm here. And I know from my own children, my children's primary school has a play therapist, and almost every child in the school now has seen that play therapist. They're just there all the time, and they see you don't have to have a specific issue. It's something that all children can benefit from. So I would definitely think that play therapists in primary schools, and then mental health professionals in high schools, and then for that we need to encourage more people to become trained and qualified in mental health. Yeah, and then also another thing as well, peer support, people that have come through the services, being trained themselves to help other people, which is something I've done in quite a few of the different services I've worked for, and it's worked really well because people respect somebody that's been there themselves. People have a lot of respect for that. So absolutely, mental health is very, very important. They are our future. Children are our future.
Thank you. I just want to pick up on the smartphone issue. And yes, smartphone is a recognized behavioral addiction. And it does have a terrible effect on mental health. One of the things that I want to do is introduce new standards for online safety. When we as software developers, when we create software, we work towards standards. So if there were some new standards in online safety, then I believe that social media companies ought to be required to comply with these new standards. I certainly do support mental health professionals in schools. But I also think that this question is similar to the question about food banks. Will we ever get to a stage where mental health professionals are not required in schools? When I went to school, we didn't have a mental health professional. I know when everybody in this room went to school, there were no mental health professionals. So there are a lot of challenges, and again, I am optimistic about the future. I believe we need to teach children coping strategies. And one strategy that I found is very helpful is to understand that weaknesses are strengths. When I was a young boy, I was very weak, but I endured my weakness and I became strong. And it's because of my childhood that I am now the man I am. So this is an important lesson to teach children. Weaknesses are strengths. Thank you.
I think it's in the nature of mental health that it has to be accessible. And for a child, it's very accessible in school. Teachers are professionals and they pick up problems. So it's a perfect plan. My son had post-COVID problems, re-socialising, and I know that school attendance has been a real issue for others. Labour will recruit 8,500 new health professionals, and we are committed to putting health professionals in schools.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's quite a lot of common agreement here. You know, Henry's made some good points, as has Nick, and Rebecca just touched on that. I think it's been one of the biggest issues that people have discussed with me in the election about mental health. It really has. And I think if you look back at the ubiquitous arrival of the smartphone and internet access back in like 2009, 2010, we've got 14 years now of children and younger people going from what was a play-based life to a phone-based life, you know, and I think that's had profound impacts. A book came out recently about this. It's called The Anxious Generation, and I think it's permeating everything. Those problems about well-being, and then it feeds into other narratives about, you know, where's the future, where are we going, what's the country like, you know. So it's really affecting all age groups from the people I've spoken to. We've got a manifesto commitment around providing trained and paid counsellors in every primary and secondary school and every sixth form college. This work will be supported through bursaries to train counsellors from underrepresented backgrounds to ensure we have sufficient culturally aware counsellors for our diverse population. Because I think it is about more getting working class people into those sort of professions as well, and understanding the perspective of those different people. I think the other thing that's really important to remember is we've got the Norfolk and Suffolk Mental Health Trust. Anybody that's familiar with them, they are rated the worst in the country for provision of mental health services. They were rated inadequate 4 times in the last 6 years by the Care Quality Commission. So we've been very poorly served by provision right across the piece for all people's mental health and well-being, and we really need to improve that. And that's why we want to tax the super rich, the millionaires and the billionaires, get some more money, and those that earn over £55,000 a year, which is 14% of taxpayers. We do need to take some extra money to invest in our health services and our mental health services.
Thank you all. We gave the candidates the questions that we were going to ask them tonight beforehand, and I'm going to tweak the next one slightly just to keep them on their toes. Charmaine, who put this question in, came and spoke to me beforehand, saying she wasn't sure it was a good question to ask tonight. So I'm going to tweak it very slightly. I'll give you the full question first, and then add my extra little bit on the end of it. Would the candidates be active in continuing working with the Mental Health Action Group in developing a mental health hub in this town? Progress is being made with blending between the statutory and voluntary sectors, and we would like an active presence to keep the momentum going. Our current MP is chairing that group. Ideally, it's a yes-no question. Would you stay involved? But what other charities in town are you going to be involved in? Nick.
Short answer, yes. And on other charities, I think one of the really pressing things is support for community transport charities, which help older and vulnerable people to make journeys to hospitals. I'd like to be involved with raising awareness, but also helping to fundraise.
Thank you. Yes, so I am committed. If I become a MP or next year if I become a councillor, then I am committed to helping not only Haverhill but the whole of Suffolk. So I am committed, and I will certainly support the mental health hub. I have also been in litter pickings. So this is another charity or another charitable activity that I will support. But I will certainly meet with anyone, and throughout my campaign, I've basically been Googling to find different charities who I can meet. So as time goes on, I will certainly find some more people who I can meet and get involved in, and I look forward to the future. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yes. Would want to maintain the MP's interest in the mental health hub. And in terms of charities and environmental work, I'll continue that. I already work in one. I would love to extend that. And also loneliness.
Yeah, the short answer is absolutely. I'm involved with a lot of medical charities, as you would expect, including cystic fibrosis. I was part of the group that raised £15 million to fund gene therapy for children with cystic fibrosis. Also, the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme, I'm closely associated with them and supporting young people. But I also am passionate about Age UK. Because when you get older, suddenly people think you don't exist. When we meet someone, we say, who are you? What do you do? And if you're retired, suddenly people don't think you're that interesting. We need to look after our older people. They have a wealth of experience and talent, and we need to bring them back in. They can advise businesses. They can offer huge support to the community, and that's why a charity like Age UK is really important to me.
So, yeah, so short answer, yes, absolutely would love to stay involved in any creation of a mental health facility in Haverhill. As I mentioned in the answer to the previous question, that is actually one of our policies for the Liberal Democrat Party, is to create a walk-in mental health hub in every single community, one of them being in Haverhill here. In terms of other charities, I mean, you probably wouldn't believe the number of emails we get as potential parliamentary candidates from residents, from charities asking us to meet with them or pledge some support to whatever good cause it is that they're putting forward. I mean, I've responded to as many as I humanly can, saying, should I be successful, I'll be more than happy to meet with them. And, you know, that promise holds true, and I'm standing in front of you making that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Short answer is yes, absolutely. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to contact the crisis services, mental health crisis services, but it's the whole system. You seem to fall into one of two categories. If you fall into you're not depressed enough, or you're not in crisis enough, they'll feed you into groups that you have to wait a very long time to get on. And obviously group work's not everyone's cup of tea. Or you fall into the higher category where you are in crisis and they will do something. But for all the people in the middle, it's impossible access. There is no mental health service. I've seen it so often. So to have something accessible for people to be able to reach out to and get to easily and access without filling in forms, without being referred down the line, would be absolutely amazing, and I'd definitely stay involved.
Thank you very much. I'm actually thrilled. I've found something that I'm going to agree with the Reform candidate on. And there's one thing. Yeah, I mean, older people and demographic ageing, that is such a big issue for West Suffolk in this country. Where I've got my office, we've got an office in Hackney, 5% of the population are aged over 65. I think in West Suffolk it's nearly half the population is aged over 65. So we're going to have quite a shortage of workers here anytime soon. But caring for older people is actually a critical thing. Working with yourselves and Reach and that hub, absolutely. You're a great charity. Haverhill's very well served by Reach on that. I also think working with churches and other faith groups is really important, because church communities, Christian communities, do a lot of work in the community and supporting people, tackling loneliness and doing those really good things. Open Road and people like that, drug and alcohol services. We've got some real issues around drugs in Newmarket, and I think sadly in Haverhill, and we need to get those services right. I would work with Suffolk Wildlife Trust. They're a great organisation, and local environmental groups. We've got a good one here called the Climate Change Gardens. I don't know if Clive's in the room, but they're based in Haverhill. There's some really good work going on from that. Suffolk Family Carers, looking after family carers. I've worked with them and I know them all very well. And obviously Citizens Advice. So I'd work with a lot of voluntary community organisations because I know what I'm doing there.
Thank you all. I believe we got a yes from every one of them. They all answered the question with a positive. Thank you. Sarah submitted the next question. If you knew your electorate disagreed with the subject of a vote in Parliament which went against the party lines or something you've stood up for, would you vote the way of your electorate and therefore against your party or something you've stood for? You get the easy one.
I was going to say, this is an easy one for me. The way I see this isn't about me and my views. This is about you. And obviously the party, I'm not in a party, so that doesn't come into it. So it's like a complete freedom, really. And I'm really glad that I did it, because there isn't actually another party that I fully agree with. But yeah, so I definitely would put the people first. That was probably the shortest answer I've given.
As a general rule, I would agree. You vote with the electorate, the people you serve. I think you also have to vote with your conscience, and there will be some moral issues that you face. And therefore, you have to be very clear in your own mind that what you're voting for is the right thing. And you take on board all the evidence that you possibly can. And that's the most honest answer I can give you.
Thank you. Well, as I said before, democracy means rule of the people. But politics is the social dynamic of leadership and decision making. And the relationship between democracy and politics is trust. I understand that trust in politics has been severely eroded over the years. But you, as an electorate, trust a politician who you elect. You trust them to be wise individuals who will make good decisions. If I were to enter Parliament at national level, then I must be honest and say my priority will be the national concern, and I cannot promise that we will never disagree. But I believe that politicians should always explain their decisions. So I hope that even if we disagree, I can explain, and hopefully we will come to an understanding. So I have to say that, and for party here, I'm using myself. I can say that I will never disagree with myself, but hopefully hopefully you will trust me to be a wise individual, and hopefully I will make good decisions for the benefit of the nation. Thank you very much.
Well, large democratic parties do have to have rules, and we have them in the Labour Party, and the expectation is that at all levels of government that you abide by the whip. But it does come up. In fact, I interview candidates, and it's the question I ask. And the answer that I want to hear is that when there is a problem, there are ways to accommodate it. For example, one can abstain, although that might come with some discipline. But there are ways around it. But got to represent the constituencies at the end of the day. Okay.
Quite, it's nice to come in on that one. It's quite an interesting question, isn't it? Because I've been in 2 political parties in my long life. I'm 62 now. And I left the Labour Party in 2009 because I was the leader of the Labour group, actually on St Edmundsbury, the precursor to West Suffolk Council, because I had a real disagreement with party policy. And I can assure Rebecca, when she's the Labour MP for West Suffolk, that, that whip is really strong. And I am very fearful about, because sadly you're not going to have a Green government anytime soon. I do acknowledge that. Although we're trying to have 4 or 5 MPs elected to hold Labour to account. But if you have a large majority in Parliament, which looks like it's likely, and you do have these very, very strong whips, you're told what to do, you're told how to vote, they're very, very hard to break, because if you come outside that, it can be, it can be quite painful, you can be ostracised, and it's not a comfortable place to be. Anyway, so I don't have to face that anymore because I'm in the small little Green Party and we independently do what we like, and we're not going to be in government in that way. There was two issues that I thought I'd also that might conflict with maybe Green Party thinking. There's a digester down the road. I was talking to somebody about that at Hatchet End today. And then there's Sunica up at the solar farm up at the top end of West Suffolk. You know, the obviously issues about clean energy and all the kind of things that I would believe in. But I think, as Katie's indicated, your Member of Parliament should be working with you and working with your communities and not working against them. You know, even if I think this is absolutely the right thing to do, the digester or Sunica, whatever, even if I thought that, if the people that I'm representing have got stronger views the other way, I think it's right and proper that I represent them in that way. Hopefully that's a good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, one second. So I think we're a bit more realistic in the Liberal Democrats. Whilst I sincerely hope that you do choose to elect me as your MP for West Suffolk, I think the Liberal Democrat Party are quite unlikely to be running the government after next week. We hope to make some serious gains across the country, one being in West Suffolk here, but I think it's unlikely we are going to be a member of the administration. What is more likely will be one of, if not the major opposition party in the country. What that does mean when it comes to voting and tackling the government, we do have a lot more freedom. So we can, we can vote the way we please, we can challenge more robustly, and we aren't as confined by party whipping. I probably will agree with one of the answers that was given earlier. When you vote, and I've done this on the councils that I represent as well, you vote the way you think is right. So, and if that aligns with how the electorate feel as well, then that's great. If not, then, ultimately we are responsible. We're held accountable by you guys. In 5 years' time or whenever the next general election is, you can just vote us out. So, yeah, vote the way you think is right, is my answer.
Now, I must confess I was a little bit worried that Rebecca's first concern was about the whips, and that the answer to what would happen if Labour screwed over Haverhill was that she might abstain. But there we are. I mean, obviously, this is politics, right? Politics is a team game, and people are sick of the squabbling and the infighting. So the trick of being an MP is to work out how you can work with others, sometimes within your own party, sometimes beyond the party divides. Some of you might have received an endorsement letter for my campaign from a Labour councillor, a former Labour councillor in Cambridgeshire, where Rebecca is also a councillor. He's supporting my campaign, and other people in the Labour Party and other parties have endorsed me because I have a record of working across those kind of party divides. I also have a concrete example about when I have been prepared to say, no, enough's enough, even if it annoys people, because constituents are energised and upset. Mark mentioned the biodigester nearby. I've upset people in the Conservative Party about my position on that. The local Conservative councillors have campaigned against it. We've all submitted evidence to the County Council protesting against it, but there are some people who are in favour of it, and I actually had one resignation from the local party about that, but I don't care because I think it's the right thing to do for local people, and that's the kind of MP I would like to be.
We're rapidly running out of time, so I'm going to try and get through one more question. So try and keep it quick. This one was submitted by Claire. I think most of you have already answered this in parts. Have you ever been a local representative within the borough of West Suffolk? And I'm going to add, why are you wanting to represent West Suffolk? David.
I also was in a different party. I used to be in the Conservative Party, and I stood in central Suffolk. I was also a member of the European... I know, exactly. I was also a member of the European Parliament as well. Look, I am used to working with colleagues and working collegiately, and obviously Suffolk is home for me, and it's really, really important, and local people matter. It's a great county to live in, but I think it could be so much better with proper representation in Westminster.
So I am currently a district councillor and a county councillor, albeit not in Suffolk, but just over the border in the Linton ward in South Cambridgeshire. So that is the area from the A11 all the way up to the Suffolk border with us here in Haverhill. And I've been doing that job for over 10 years now, 10 years in May this year. Why do I want to be an MP in West Suffolk? Simply, I live here. I would really love to represent this area that I live in. And I'm hoping, after you've heard from all of us here this evening, that some, if hopefully all of you, will agree with that. So thank you.
Thank you. So I am a parish councillor in my village or borough, just near Bury St Edmunds. And I've already been involved. I was on the D-Day committee. We organised a lighting of a beacon, and we had 1940s style dance. The council is keen to utilise my skills as a software developer, so I designed a poster for that, which we advertised all throughout the village. We also had a police engagement day, or afternoon really. So again, I designed a poster for that. We advertised that event all throughout the village. I turned up to the police engagement to learn about policing and how the process of training. And currently we are also moving our website to gov.uk domain name. So I won't go into the technical details, but that's what I'm doing for the council at the moment. Thank you very much.
Yes, I consider myself, even though obviously I live in Bury, I don't even need them on because I'm not reading. I live in Bury, but I am exactly 3.5 miles from where the constituency boundary is, which is actually closer than my school run. My school runs 8 miles, which I do every single day of my life. But I consider myself a resident of West Suffolk, and I think all the different towns are a little bit different anyway. Haverhill's got slightly different needs to Newmarket or Mildenhall or Brandon. They're all slightly different. Obviously, I've already said I've been a town councillor in Bury St Edmunds for 4 years, which I absolutely loved. And the reason that I'm standing here is because I've worked here. I've so many links to the different towns right across West Suffolk. I've got friends here. I think we all do. The towns are quite close together, aren't they? And you tend to know each other. So but I feel like I am a resident. Geographically, I am a resident of West Suffolk.
So local government, I feel like it's been around a long time in my life. I first became a councillor in 1995, and I was deputy leader for the first Labour-controlled county. It was actually controlled rather than Labour-led as it is now at St Edmundsbury. And I was chair of Transport and Public Works. Those were the days. And I was also responsible for leisure services like Haverhill Arts Centre and things like that. And I brought you things like your bins. If you like your brown or blue bins, that was me when I was doing that. And I worked as the chair of the Cattle Market Working Group in Bury St Edmunds. We redeveloped that whole site, and that's now the Arc. It's a shopping centre. And I argued, Pat might remember, back in the day, I argued and managed to get it through the Labour group by 1 vote, I think, to get the Apex, that building, that cultural centre into Bury St Edmunds, which I think really anchors the whole place. What else have I done? I was a leader of the Green and Independent group on Suffolk County Council for 4 years. I was 8 years on the County Council. And I represented the County Council on the Local Government Association and the Community Wellbeing Board. And we dealt with things like homelessness and mental health and the issues that we've been talking tonight. And I was representing Suffolk in that. I stopped doing local government in 2017, and I think this is an issue hasn't come up tonight because of the austerity that we've had under the Conservatives over all of these years. And local government, its powers, its authority, what it can do has been stripped away from it. And I thought, what's the point of being there? Literally, there's no money, there's no resources, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'd be more use doing my work and going away and doing that. So I think it's so sad to see what the government has done to local government by emasculating it in the way that it has. And yeah, because that's what we need. That's what we need in Haverhill. We need a good council, and we need a good town council with some money and resources and working together. And I'd like to see local government come back again.
I've been a councillor for 5 years in Ely. I've been deputy mayor, and if I weren't doing this, I would now be mayor of Ely. I know about service. I know about how to get things done. I've worked, shopped and partied in West Suffolk and done quite a bit of walking as well. I will move here if I become MP. West Suffolk is beautiful, but it needs a champion.
I haven't been a councillor. I won't read out my CV in full. These days I run my own business. I've been doing that for 7 years. I write the main Monday column in the Daily Telegraph. That gives you a bit of power and pull because it makes people in government departments want to talk to you if you're lobbying for your constituency. I did work in government when I had a full head of hair in the Home Office and in Number 10 in senior roles, so I know how to get things done. Why do I want to be the MP for here? We live here. We love it here. My parents are here. But loving it isn't enough. You've got to be ready and qualified to do the job. Straight after the last election, COVID struck, and there wasn't any time to learn on the job. Businesses needed help, families needed to keep their heads above water. We're living in a very turbulent world, and things like that can happen again. And if I'm elected as your Member of Parliament, I will be ready to serve you from day one.
Thank you all very much for your answers tonight. Thank you all very much for listening. We've asked the candidates to have a 1 minute closing statement. We're going to keep you to that 1 minute. I haven't had a chance to tread on anyone's toes yet, but I'm still willing to. Mark, 1 minute, please.
You've had the same Tory MP for 124 years. I think it's time for something different. So it is really the need for a fresh start. I would urge you to read our manifesto, Real Change. It's on, obviously, the Green Party's website. It's got all our policies laid out there. And we pledge investment to mend broken Britain. And that would mean, obviously, focusing here in Haverhill as well. We want to really do more to bring our country back, our green and pleasant land back, and to look after our people and to look after our climate. And we think we need a fairer tax system with those people with the broadest shoulders to pay for and underpin that investment. And that's our focus in the Green Party. So please do look at it in the manifesto, and please vote Green on July the 4th. Thank you.
So this year, more than any other, we have a great opportunity to have a change in West Suffolk. We are seeing the Conservatives plummeting in the polls. We're seeing the other parties' stock rise. So this is the first opportunity we're going to have in West Suffolk for a different colour of Member of Parliament. Why I think that should be me, I think I've been very direct in answering your questions this evening. I think I've backed that up with some of the policy that we would bring in, and I would certainly support here in West Suffolk. I'm a local person as well, so if you want a local MP that you can badger in the car park at Tesco's if things aren't going right, then that's, putting myself up on a target here, but yeah, I'm willing to take that on. So yeah, please do consider voting Liberal Democrat, and for me, Henry Batchelor. Thank you.
This is the most extraordinary election I've ever come across. Look, I think it's impossible to say how this is going to play out at the general election. The most important thing I would say to you is vote. We actually don't have a manifesto. We have a contract because we believe that manifesto means lies. So we have a contract with the people. Please read it, have a look at it. What you must do, though, is once you've read all the parties' manifestos or contracts, then please vote. This country and democracy was built on the ability to vote, and people died for the ability to vote. So please do that. And just in terms of where we're going, this country is desperate for change. It's falling apart. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's why you can't vote Tory, you can't vote Labour, and you need to vote for Reform UK.
I think I'm going to do something unusual for somebody seeking office and to tell you the truth. The country is going to vote for a Labour government. The question is the size of the majority. And if in West Suffolk we end up with a Labour MP, the majority for Labour is likely to be 250 or more. It will be completely unprecedented. There will be nobody to hold them to account. There will be nobody. Please show some manners. There will be nobody. Parliamentary democracy is about holding governments to account, and this country will need a strong opposition, and it will need... Can you be quiet and just show some respect to the audience, please? You do nobody any favours behaving in this way, and you're doing your party and your opinions a disservice by behaving like somebody considerably younger than yourself. This country needs a strong opposition. I am ready to provide that role as your MP, scrutinising a Labour government, standing up to them when it's necessary, but most importantly, being the local servant here for you. I'm the only candidate here with a dedicated plan for our local community. And I'm asking you to vote for me, to stand up to Labour, to help to rebuild the Conservative Party so that people with Conservative values feel represented, and to get things done in our community.
I think Henry's colleagues will make an excellent opposition in Parliament. West Suffolk has been left behind. Labour has a plan. Vote change, vote Labour on the 4th of July. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, this is just all the stuff that I find really boring, in all due respect, with all due respect. I just want to reiterate that I'm not in this for the money, ego, power. I'm an ordinary parent, and I spend most of my time in utter disbelief at the unfairness and injustice that we have today in our society. I make mistakes, I don't know everything, but I have the humility to admit that. It's time for a different kind of politics. No more party politics, big donations, party whips. We need real people to represent us. Things can't get any worse. You may think, well, I have to disagree. We have a chance now to do things differently, so let's do it. And also, no matter what happens in this election, I'll feel like I'm winning because I set out to stand to be an alternative to the big parties, and I feel I will have done that. And also, my campaign has been funded by the people. It's completely people-powered via crowdfunder. So.
Thank you. Well, in this election, you have a very rare opportunity to help disabled people. I know people with cerebral palsy. I know parents who are lifelong carers for their disabled children. They will never have a better representative than me. I am a winner. I have achieved so much in my life. And if I become an MP, then that will be a miracle. And I believe this country needs a miracle. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, these people would like you to get out and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. You have a vote, please go out and use it next week. Can we once again please show our appreciation for the candidates who have been here tonight and given their time to answer our questions. Thank you all very much indeed.
We won't overdo it really, but just to say I really do thank you very much for coming and keeping it relatively, calm and peaceful. I know lots of emotions are running high, but I can't just stress enough really, we do need to vote. Our forefathers, or certainly the ladies, certainly lost their lives as a result to really get the vote. So please, do vote. And certainly stand up for what you believe here in Haverhill and of course in West Suffolk. So thank you very much for coming along tonight. Really do appreciate it.